Okay, good afternoon. The hour is nigh. It's 3 o'clock on a Thursday and some wonderful weather outside. Hopefully, many of you have your power restored, perhaps didn't lose your power, but thank you for coming, both our senators and our guests. I'll remove my mask as I'm appropriately distanced from my friends, and it helps with the closed captioning that Ms. Knoll has figured out. So we're very grateful for that. Thank you, Ms. Knoll. All right, we'll consider that our call to order. We will take roll by means of your Zoom login. I do have some proxies and alternates to present. Rosemary Peters-Hill for Catherine Jensen, Robert Cook for Doug Gilman, Anissa Basayev for Matthew Banjal, Nicolette Lopez for David Dulcini. Are there any other alternates or proxies to account for? All right, well, if there are some, please message Ms. Knoll directly for the record. All right, next up, announcements of guests is a little bit challenging via our, I don't know, Brady Bunch reality. So if you won't mind, please raise your hand if you're a guest. Ms. Knoll will see you raising your hand and call on you to ask you to announce yourself. Okay. Melanie Milton, you can unmute. And she'll unmute you. Can you hear? Okay.
Okay. All right, unmute. Let's see. You can lower your hand and Dr. Van Gemmert.
Arend van Gemmert, College of Human Sciences and Education, Associate Dean.
All right. Thank you, Professor Van Gemmert.
Melanie Milton.
Hi, yes, Melanie Milton with the LSU Staff Senate Office. I'm their coordinator and just visiting today.
Thank you. Next.
Kevin Cope. If he can unmute.
Professor Cope.
Dr. Cassidy.
Hi, Jane Cassidy, Office of Academic Affairs.
Okay. Colonel Staal.
Colonel Staal.
Hi, this is Lieutenant Colonel Dorrie Staal, and I'm here representing the Louisiana National Guard today.
VP Arbuthnot.
Good afternoon, Keena Arbuthnot, Special Advisor to the President on COVID-19 response, as well as a faculty member in CHSE and Associate Vice President of Overed.
All right.
Sylvester. There's one more.
Okay. Professor Sylvester.
Yes, Judith Sylvester. I'm just visiting.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our guests. Thank you for being here and welcome. All right. Moving on. There are no public comments on the agenda for consideration, so we'll move on to the minutes. Are there, and we'll do this, I guess, by consensus, if there are no significant changes other than in content or changes other than grammar or perhaps spelling, which are welcome, please let us know and we will move forward with accepting the minutes as written provisionally. Please say so if you are opposed to this. You can do it in the comments button. Is usually most efficient, I suppose. All right, hearing none, we will accept the minutes from our last meeting on September 22nd, 2020. As written, again, if you do find any errors, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. We certainly don't want any typographical errors or names misspelled, or obviously departments or anything like that, wrong associations with any particular individual. All right, with that, we do have a very packed schedule today, and it's, wow, what a month so far, right? Welcome to the vestiges of October. Just when you think things couldn't get any more interesting, complex, convoluted, or chaotic, yahoo, here we go again. Our sincere best, however, for our friends and colleagues affected by the fifth storm this season. I know this has caused a lot of disruption, and people are doing their best to log in. Thank you very much. We also have our guest speaker, Dean James Spencer, who is in North Carolina, but yet had his electricity wiped out by Zeta. You just can't get away from it, I guess. All right, well, with that said, we hope that power and normal operations are soon restored to our colleagues. Please be safe until that is so. All right, so thank you again for tuning into our live broadcast here from the bowels of our LSUT Boyd. We have a full agenda today with some extraordinary guest speakers. Associate Vice Provost Keena Arbuthnot will share with us the latest and greatest news on the daily symptom tracker. Lieutenant Colonel Staal will present National Guard COVID testing on campus and elsewhere. And Dean James Spencer, if he's able to, from the treehouse or wherever he's had to go to get power, will discuss future aspiration and plans for our LSU graduate program. Welcome to all. I know Dr. Arbuthnot is taking time, is squeezing us in between a very packed schedule. So I will yield the floor to you, Dr. Arbuthnot.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to be here. Thank you so much, Mandy, for inviting me. This is really a great opportunity for me to get a chance to speak to the faculty. I know we've had several webinars, and you all have been a part of those webinars, asking questions about everything from the symptom tracker to testing on campus, et cetera. So I just wanted to come here. I know I have a very short time frame on here with this group, but wanted to come here and kind of give you all an update and make sure all the faculty here are up to date in terms of what's going on as we move through this semester. I know this is kind of, we're moving at warp speed. I know everybody feels like that. We're already almost knocking down November and getting closer to Thanksgiving. So just wanted to really give an update on things as they stand now, but also look into the future, which I think we all are looking toward, how to make things better for next semester. So I'll begin with number one. Is very nice to see several familiar faces and names across my Zoom screen. So I'm in good company being faculty from CHSC. I see a lot of my comrades as well as folks that I've worked with over in ORED and in the Summer Institute last summer. So just really excited to be here. So just a couple quick updates in terms of some of the things that I'm working on. As you know, for several months, I've been helping with the COVID response and working with the president's office as well as the leadership team on several aspects of the COVID response alongside several individuals from lots of departments across campus that are really working to help make sure that the campus stays safe and healthy. One of the major questions is that a lot of people are asking about the symptom checker. And I've got some updates about that, but and I know Mandy asked a couple questions at the webinar. So I want to talk a little bit about the response rates and maybe some of the misconceptions about the symptom checker, and as well as even looking forward in terms of how we'll use it in the spring semester. So first to start, I know from the webinars in August, I talked a lot about the symptom tracker and going on and getting the daily symptom tracker. And we really wanted 100% response rate, of course, from everyone daily. I think that there has been some concern that students as well as faculty, staff, maybe confusion in terms of how often to use the symptom tracker. Because it gives an approval at the end of the symptom tracker, what we're finding is that faculty, students, and staff are using it only on the days that they're coming to campus. which makes sense. The only problem with the way that ours is configured is that the first question, which we've embedded in there, is a self-report of a positive of a COVID test. And so it's very important that we really, when we designed the symptom tracker, we were hoping that the first priority was to align ourselves with the CDC guidance, which is basically pushing everyone from early March to begin to monitor their symptoms. So using the symptom tracker, there's several different advantages for it. Well, number one is to monitor your symptoms. I know it's kind of a pain every morning you wake up and you have this email, but the idea was, particularly for people that begin to see symptoms arise, is to kind of go through the checklist and give themselves an indication of whether or not maybe they should see a doctor, or if they're showing symptoms that are similar or consistent with COVID-19, that they would get tested or at least see a physician. So that's one purpose of it. The second purpose of it was as a self-report for positive test cases. As you know, everyone on campus, you have an opportunity, and it's not mandated for you to do testing on campus. We encourage faculty, students, and staff to get tested, but you may go to your physician and get tested for COVID. You may decide to get tested at the National Guard, who will be talking later today, or one of the purple pods, or even in the community somewhere. And so LSU enacted the symptom checker and put a portion, that first question in there, to self-report if you're waiting test results, if you've tested positive, or if you've tested negative. For most of you all on here, hopefully you've tested negative. And so basically the symptom tracker just keeps coming to you every day. But when you test positive in the symptom tracker, it actually alerts several offices on campus of your positive test, and people that need the information to help you. Either HR, number one, is to get time off, as well as it enacts for students, Student Health Center, to make sure that they're being taken care of and monitor their symptoms, et cetera. So it's really important to use the symptom tracker, particularly when you're getting tested, but really we're pushing for people to do it every day. Of course, there's no mandate right now. And I think for some of us, that's a good thing. You know, I don't know if we're really moved by mandates or being in compliance right now. There's too many things going on. But the encouragement is to continue to use it, and use it not only to monitor your symptoms, but also to report your positive or negative test results. And the reason why we need the negative results as well through self-report, because it helps us to calculate our positivity rate. And positivity rate is very important. I know you all keep up with the news and look on our dashboard. And one of the things in terms of getting the positivity rate is just a function of how many positives versus how many negatives you have on campus. So if we're only getting the positives that are reporting, our positivity rate is a lot higher because our denominator doesn't include all the negatives. So really encourage people to report their test results there, as well as if you test positive, it enacts the contact tracing component for the LSU campus, which has been extremely helpful in contacting people very quickly on campus and letting them know if they've been in close contact with someone who's tested positive. And some of you all may or may not, hopefully have not been asked to quarantine or isolate. But if it comes to that, that's really one of the benefits of using the symptom tracker. But for most of us, we go through and click no, 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 and we get approved to come to campus. So just really encouraging you all to continue using it. However, with anything, I think we all understand clearly that this has been an unprecedented semester. We're learning as we're going. And I'm always of the mindset as a researcher, and one of my areas of expertise is program evaluation. So I'm constantly thinking about how to improve and how to make things easier and more consistent. So really thinking through how to make changes to that symptom tracker next semester. We're actually in good company. So I can give you a little bit about the response rates and put it in context so you all kind of understand. And I mentioned it to the leadership team, and Provost Haney was saying that's actually pretty good based on the number of people we have on campus. So daily, what we're seeing is about 20% of the students on any given day are responding to the symptom tracker. That sounds pretty low for many of us who are quantitative people, but that's considering the 20% of all students on campus. So on a Monday, it may be 20%, 20 to 25%. On Tuesdays, 20 to 25%. For the faculty, for the employees, I'm sorry, we put faculty and staff together. For the employees, we're seeing much higher response rates, which are about 50% per day. But this is per day. So what we find is that if a student comes on class on Monday, or maybe has a class on Monday, they do the symptom tracker, but maybe they don't have classes on Tuesday. And so they're not doing it. So as we go along, we're trying to see how those trends kind of flesh out. And I think that'll be part of, as we start thinking through the communications for next semester, how we can work on that. Of course, the symptom tracker we found with Qualtrics, we're working with Qualtrics. They're not perfect. I think some of you all may have got caught with the SMS glitch. There was one day where we were having problems with getting text messages through the symptom tracker, and we worked very hard with, I worked alongside Qualtrics to fix that. University of Georgia, who uses the same system, some of the other universities, they were having the same problems, and it was actually a function of AT&T, I'm sorry, the Verizon network. And so that's why some folks had some glitches. So we're working through those things. But what I really would impress upon you all is to email covidresponse@lsu.edu if you have a question or a problem. One of the biggest issues is if you actually put in that you tested positive, it actually starts the contact tracing and you're counted in the positive test. What we're seeing is that some employees are kind of going through very quickly and they click on the positive and it actually enacts kind of the second and third functions of the system. So we just ask you to go ahead and reach out to covidresponse@lsu.edu and let us know that that was an accident, and we can kind of back you out of the system. So we can definitely do that. If you have any other problems or glitches, please let us know. We're in constant contacts with Qualtrics, and what we see is, you know, we send out just from LSU alone, we've got 50,000, over 50,000 people that get the across all campuses that get the text messages and the emails a day. So we don't know if there's an issue until you reach out. So you can just email us at covidresponse@lsu.edu and let us know if there's a problem or a glitch. We found that people were getting stuck on question 1 and we reached out to Qualtrics and we were able to fix it very quickly. So if you have a question or something or issue, just please email. As I said, we're trying to think through how we can make this easier for the faculty and staff and students second semester long term. But as we round out the rest of this semester, I would just encourage you not to get into COVID fatigue, which we all are in, and to continue doing your symptom checker. I see Raphael laughing. I hope everybody feels, I'm sure everybody feels the same way. And just keep pushing with the symptom tracker. I know it's aggravating, and I know you say, I feel fine today, but just kind of let us know. And it's a way for us to kind of keep up with our folks too on campus. It's been really helpful for the Student Health Center and for us to keep up with students and just making sure that the symptoms and students are really kind of monitoring their symptoms. And on a positive note, we're really seeing in the student population, particularly because with Res Life and Student Health Center, that we're seeing a lot of asymptomatic students. So that's positive and negative. It's positive because we're not seeing students get really sick, but it's negative because they're asymptomatic and they can, you know, walk around and, you know, not know that they're positive and they don't have any symptoms. So we really have to continue testing them. Someone asked the question, as I'm talking, I'm seeing questions pop up, so forgive me, but I'll go back to one question I just saw is that one question is, should we do it over the weekend? And the answer is yes. And one of the reasons is that first question. So for those of you all on here who are quantitative faculty members or who works with survey research, the first question we embed in the symptom tracker is about testing. And so if you test on the weekend, we're just encouraging people to kind of keep it up and keep using it each day of the week, including the weekends. In addition, as we said with the CDC requirements, it's just monitoring your symptoms. First thing in the morning, roll out of bed and monitor your symptoms. You know, myself included, sometimes I forget and then I get that reminder at 12 o'clock and I feel really bad because I'm the one who sends out the reminders, at least helps to send out the reminders. And I make sure I put my symptoms in there and keep up with my tracker. And this is what we're finding, some of the response rate issues and questions that we're finding is that a lot of other universities are having the same issues. Tulane is using a symptom tracker. And if you talk to your colleagues at many of the SEC schools and other schools, they're using it as well. So needless to say, it's a great way to keep up with your symptoms and make sure that we're able to find out those people who are being tested, whether they're on campus or off campus. Additional questions, I'm seeing them pop up, so give me just a second and I'll see if I can answer a couple before I need to get off. I see the weekend question. Someone asked about the QR code, and that's a great question. Like, why are we giving a QR code if they're not used on campus? And that's something that we're thinking about for for next semester. And I think actually Matt Lee, who's on here, he actually encouraged us early on. He was saying that they can be used in really high traffic areas for first semester. We did not use the QR codes up until this point, but we're definitely looking into how we can use them. If you have ideas, please email covidresponse@lsu.edu. Welcome any ideas, or if you think it would be helpful to use them or have them at certain places on campus, even thinking about kind of high traffic areas like the Union, even when people drive in, and just thinking through how best we can use the information that we have, and particularly our symptom checking and tracking device, in order to keep up with and slow the spread of the virus across campus.
Very much. I'll back on. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Arbuthnot. Thank you for your leadership on this and all that you do to protect us. Another question, not only if you happen to forget, but because some of us just dive right in the morning, don't we, and sort of lose track of time. And speaking of losing track of time, people have accidentally reported filling it out twice. How does that bugger up the system, or does it? And should we feel bad or send you a message, or what shall we do?
No, that's not a problem at all. So we thought through that from the beginning, and we knew that would be a problem. One of the reasons why we allow people to go in multiple times is if you report in the morning that, all is well and I'm awaiting test results, and you get a test result at noon, we leave those links open so you can go back in and kind of overwrite your initial response for the day. And it's no problem at all. We just make sure, because if you test positive at noon, we want to know it as soon as possible. So no worries if you go in and put an incorrect response and you have to go back and do it again. Please use your most updated information. The only problem is, and I just want to impress upon the faculty, and maybe this hasn't been as clear, if you do report a positive test, that's the only time that you need to email covidresponse@lsu.edu, because we actually have to back you out of the system because you would initiate the contact tracing. And if you don't let us know, you'll get a call from the call center and asking about your close contacts, et cetera. And we've only seen that really with faculty. We haven't seen that as much, but we know that people, it's the first question. It's kind of the first response, and you can just accidentally click on it. And then you recognize, oh, I made an error and I can't go on campus. I must have done something wrong. But if you do actually push that positive test case, please just alert us as soon as possible. If you don't email us, what actually happens is when contact tracing is initiated, and some of you all may not, you've never seen the form, but if you say you test positive, there's kind of the first question in contact tracing is just a confirmation of that positive test. If you click on no, I haven't tested positive, it clears you out of the system as well. So we've got a couple safeguards there. The real issue is if you report a positive test. Does that help, Mandy?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks again for having me. This is a pleasure to be around my comrades from across the university, and look forward to any questions you may have. You can send to covidresponse@lsu.edu, or you can email or reach out to me personally, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible and get information sent your way.
Thank you so much for squeezing us in. Be
Thanks.
well.
Okay, you take care. Take care, everyone.
All right. I am delaying my president's report because our guests have graciously joined us, and we want to be respectful of their schedules and all of their other activities and responsibilities. So next up is Lieutenant Colonel Dorrie Staal, who has been a member of the Air National Guard for over 14 years. And in the last 4 years is the Medical Detachment Commander for FEMA Region 6. I'll let her share some of the details of what it is they do, which is extremely impressive. Boots to the ground in 72 hours or something like that, which is very impressive. She is a registered nurse for over 22 years. And has worked in many different aspects of nursing, very impressive, in trauma, surgery, and administration. And she's currently the nurse manager of the LSU Student Health Center on the main campus. So Well, I guess I'll let you take it from there, Lieutenant Colonel Staal. Thank you again very much. We did ask Lieutenant Colonel Staal to visit us. You may have seen the National Guard out and about, including on our own campus, doing COVID testing. A number of people asked about that. Why are people in military fatigues applying Q-tips to test various members of our LSU faculty? We are grateful, however, for that service. And I thought she could give us, well, I guess you've had a busy season, haven't you? And then here we are again, yet another hurricane. So we don't want to take up too much of your time, but we'll certainly appreciate anything you'd like to share with us about COVID, hurricanes, or anything in between.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. And as you all heard from the bio, LSU is home for me when I'm in civilian status. Back during March 23rd to be exact, I received a phone call telling me that I was being brought to active duty for COVID-19 response. So life changed for my family and I tremendously on that day. I was state activated for the first week and then federalized after that. And I have remained on federal duty since then. And looks like I will remain on federal duty through December 31st of this year. I was assigned to the Governor's Office of Homeland Security as the nursing advisor to the general staff. So I'm assigned to the TAG and the assistant TAG, the Adjutant General of the state, who then answers directly to the governor. So I started out helping them with standing up the Montreal Convention Center and help design the layout and decide based on the type of patient that we were going to be capable of taking on and taking care of, what type of equipment supplies that we would get for the Montreal. And then I brought a team in and we procured like crazy people 24 hours a day for about 2 weeks to procure in a globally competitive environment for all things medical at that time. So it was a really interesting time. Certainly not anything that I had ever been faced with before, but it was a challenge. We got through it. And then from there, we started thinking about testing because, you know, with our population set to, in comparison to New York, I think we were per capita scheduled to surpass them if our shutdown measures and our shelter-in-place measures had not worked. So, you know, we were concerned first about overflow, and then we were concerned about how do we get all these people tested to see if our measures have worked and to see what our true positivity within our communities are. So that kind of brought me from the Montreal Convention Center realm over into testing. And because we were considered a top 5 state in the nation, we got some special attention from the White House and from HHS regarding what our needs were in the state of Louisiana. And may I share my screen? I have a PowerPoint that I'd like to share with you guys. There we go.
All right. Okay.
Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys from the beginning. Okay, so so I kind of gave you guys a brief history of how we got to the point of COVID testing in Louisiana. I'm going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about the current state, and then guidelines, recommendations, the future state of testing, and some patient education. But so as I go into more of the history of testing, we were at the top 5. FEMA identified us, like I said before, as the priority for allocated resources. And then FEMA decided to bring in a team of people and actually stand up a small scale surge event over 5 days and do some piloting in the state of Louisiana. And they provided all resources. They provided the test, the lab, everything that we needed, the people who actually did the collection. And it was a great experience for the state because it showed us how we needed to set things up in order to have some statewide testing. And there was a high turnout because the lack of testing had been a big thing all over the nation and in the state of Louisiana. It was very hard to get a test at that time. So because of the high turnout, because of where we were headed as far as our positivity rates in the nation, they decided to give us more testing for the future. And they decided to give us the gold standard testing, which is PCR testing, polymerase chain reaction testing. That's considered the gold standard, and it detects the presence of antigen rather than antibodies. So it's a lot more sensitive than some of the point of care testing and the instant tests that you guys may be hearing about now. So HHS decided to give us 60,000 of those PCR tests to the Baton Rouge area, and 5 locations were decided upon, including Alex Box Stadium. And so we did testing there over the month of July, and we ended up performing 7,608 tests just at Alex Box during that time period. We also did some pretty amazing things on your campus. You all may or may not know, HHS, in conjunction with the state of Louisiana and the National Guard, performed the first ever pool testing pilot in the nation. It was conducted right at Alex Box Stadium, and we used 500 samples, and we did a pool testing pilot in order to explore ways for HHS to help the nation conserve resources from a lab perspective. So this would allow labs to conserve reagents. So you can basically put 5 samples. They all get their own test specimen tube with a swab in, but then you take a second swab and you do a pool sample, and the lab runs that pool sample first. And if it's negative, then you can assume that all 5 of those people involved in that group are also negative. So it was highly successful, and it set some groundwork for further piloting in the nation in order to conserve resources. So it's a pretty cool thing. I wanted to make you all aware had happened right here on LSU campus. After the surge started winding down for the Baton Rouge area, our positivity rates in the New Orleans area were still very high, and HHS decided to give us a second round of PCR tests, another 60,000. And although we spread out over New Orleans, numerous sites and school locations, we still could not burn all of those tests in the greater New Orleans area. And we knew there was still a need in Baton Rouge to continue testing, especially on the campuses of LSU and Southern. So we reached out to HHS and got permission to share those New Orleans surge tests with Baton Rouge again. And we brought them back to LSU campus. We started in the Union and at the PMAC. And eventually, it eventually turned into just the Union. So currently, you all have the single testing location outside of the LSU Union. We are utilizing HHS eTrue North supplies and eTrue North laboratories. So HHS Health and Human Services has a contract with eTrue North, and we send the samples there overnight, and those samples are processed through the eTrue North lab and then resulted out through the portal. Turnaround time now is about 48 hours for testing, for getting your results through your portal. And that's been a great improvement from when we did the first surge testing at Alex Box. So when turnaround times were 5 to 7 days on average during that time. And we realized through that surge testing that the requisitions being handwritten, labels being handwritten, were really affecting our turnaround time. So we have increased our technology footprint on all of the sites that we are surge testing on, including LSU. And we provide typed labels now, printed vouchers from the computer, and that has helped us tremendously. So this testing will continue to be supported by the National Guard until 17 December or until LSU deems that we're no longer needed to test on campus, because we do understand that you guys may be all going virtual again over Thanksgiving. So I'm sure there'll be more conversations to come regarding how long Guard is needed there, but they're certainly available through the 17th of December. Total tests to date on the LSU Student Union and PMAC site are 5,864. So we are doing quite a bit of testing there. True North testing will actually end, however, on 7 November. So the Guard will still be there. We'll still be testing, but we are going to be using Quest PCR testing, which will be taking the place of the True North. Contract negotiations are in their final stages with Louisiana Department of Health as we speak to get that finalized. And I'm actually traveling in about an hour up to Alexandria to do a Quest pilot on site at the Coliseum this evening. And tomorrow we'll be doing training to get the Guard ready to take that over. So it's a seamless transition on the 9th of November when we resume testing on your campus again. So not sure if you guys know or not, but Louisiana National Guard will be transitioning off federal orders no later than 31 December. So they'll no longer be federal dollars allocated to National Guard support for COVID response past that point. So LDH is currently making decisions regarding replacement options for the Louisiana National Guard in regards for CBTS testing. So have no fear, community-based testing will continue. It will just, it remains to be seen what that will look like as far as either Department of Health staff or third-party companies being contracted to carry on the testing on your campus and elsewhere. So we will start a transition at some point, and you may see two entities on campus at one time working together to do a right seat, left seat before lane disappears. So current testing methods, there is a registration required through the portal. It's no cost and it's open to the public. It is merely observed by the collector who gives instructions regarding self-collection. And we verify the identity of the person matches the paperwork and matches the tubes so that there's no mix-ups with the lab and getting proper results. And they also instruct the person on self-swabbing techniques. And the technique currently includes inserting a nasal swab 3/4 of an inch into the nostril or to the point of slight resistance, and then rotating that swab against the wall of the nostril 3 to 5 seconds, and then repeating in the opposite side. Then you would insert the swab into the tube, break the handle off, and place the cap securely on and into a provided bag, which is then sealed with the lab requisition inside, and it goes off to the lab at the end of the day. We do provide a pretty large amount of community education at your location. We give Love My Community packs, which contain some disposable masks and some COVID prevention education. We also give a 4-pack of white cloth reusable masks to every person testing. And we give education regarding quarantine versus isolation and prevention of community spread, which I'll show you in the following slides. There's also some information given regarding how to obtain your results online. So this is what one of the main flyers looks like that's given, and it's what you should know to protect yourself and others. And it's basically just talking about COVID-19 and understanding what it is, how it's spread, and then protecting yourself and others from it by staying at home when you're sick, wearing your cloth face mask coverings over your nose and your mouth when in public, cleaning and washing your hands, and that sort of thing. The other flyer we give out is the quarantine versus isolation, and this helps the person being tested understand the difference in understanding what the responsibilities are when you're told to quarantine or to isolate. So we think those are really useful to students and to the community. And I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but President Tom Galligan came through our site just a few days ago, and I would like to show you guys this 1 minute and 20-second video if you guys are up for it today. And it will show you and highlight testing.
Hey, Tom Galligan here. We all know how important it is to get tested, and I've been telling everybody to go get tested. So I am here at the Union. I'm going to go get tested. Let's just go on inside and see how fast and easy this is. Hey, how are you? Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. My name's Keena. I'm a nurse here.
I'm fine.
Nice to meet you. You're here for a COVID test?
I am.
Have you pre-registered?
I have not.
All right, we'll get you to scan this. Click that website right there. Yep. All right, so you're going to go to register. Awesome. Right? Following doctor's
All right.
5 seconds in each side.
Okay, how far in do I put it?
Just until the Q-tip is covered, okay? So I'll let you know how far.
Oh, great.
You can grab that out of the packet.
Oh, thoughtful of
See
you.
where that is? You see that?
I do.
Okay, scoot back behind the cone, right there.
Okay, now, fire it up
Take a
in.
big circle, yep, right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Lieutenant Staal, we can't see.
Yes.
Yeah. We need you to share your.
Ooh, that one is so more tickly.
You can't see the video?
No, we need you to share your browser.
Oh, no, it says I am.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody.
Maybe minimize your PowerPoint.
Successful.
Hang on just a second.
Well,
I apologize, guys. Hang on. Can you see it now? Can you see my browser now? Can you guys see that?
No.
You have to go into the share thing and choose that
Let
option
me see.
that's shown in your list.
Oh,
of-
I see. I'm so sorry. I thought it was going to show my entire screen. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. Can y'all see that?
We all know how important it is to get tested, and I've been telling everybody to go get
Can you
tested.
see that now?
So I am here at the Union. I'm
Okay.
going to go get tested. Let's just go on inside and see how fast and easy this is. Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. My name's Keena. I'm a nurse here.
I'm fine.
Nice to meet you. You're here for a COVID test?
I am.
Have you pre-registered?
I have not.
All right, we'll get you to scan this. Click that website right there. Yep. All right, so you're going to go to register. Awesome. Right, you can follow down.
All right.
5 seconds in each side.
Okay, how far in do I put it?
Just until the Q-tip is covered, okay? So I'll let you know how far.
Oh, great.
Grab that out of the packet.
Oh, thoughtful of
See
you.
where that is? You see that?
I do.
Okay, scoot back behind the cone, right there.
Okay, now,
All right.
fire it up
Take a
in.
big circle, yep, right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, switch to the other one. Big circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great job.
Ooh, that one is so much more tickly.
Come right there, drop it down. Perfect. All right, so 2 to 5 days.
Yep.
Closer to 2 days.
Yep.
Results will be online, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Tom.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody. You too. Successful.
Well, who knew our president was a movie star? Very good. If you won't mind, Lieutenant Colonel Staal, could you send us the link so we can send it out to everyone?
Sure, yes, I certainly will. I'll send you guys the link to that. When I saw that, I thought that was great and such a good part of this presentation for you guys to be able to see how easy it is to get done. So I'll open it up to any questions anyone has at this point.
All right, well, thank you so much. And that was an excellent illustration. Thanks for sharing that as well. Question, many people have asked, how frequently should they get tested?
So that is a good question. And anytime that you have a possible exposure, you should definitely get tested. Anytime that you're not feeling well, you should get tested. And if you just want to know, a lot of people who are positive are actually asymptomatic. So, you know, it kind of depends on the individual and how often you want to get tested. But if you're in a congregate setting very often, and you know that COVID is prominent in the community that you're living and working in, then certainly I recommend getting tested, you know, weekly if that's what you're comfortable with. But definitely if you've had a possible exposure or if you're not feeling well.
All right, very good. All right, there's a question that's popped up. The numbers reports 5,964 tests, but LSU COVID dashboard reports 10,684 tests. So are those outside tests?
Yeah, so you guys have, that probably combines the testing that was done at Alex Box as well. Plus it probably combines the non-laying testing that's being done on your campus.
Okay, thank you.
So that may be running your numbers from the Student Health Center. It may be running the private COVID testing that's occurring, and then maybe you guys, I think y'all are running some tests through your lab too.
Next question, do you have any idea what the percent positivity or negativity, so false positive and false negative results?
So for PCR testing, the false negative reporting is very low. The last data that I read said it was about 98.6% for accuracy. Now, when you start talking about different types of testing, like the instant point of care testing and things like that, your percent of error is greatly increased with the Abbott ID Now and the Abbott Binax. If you are not symptomatic, then the margin of error rate can be as much as 40%. If you are symptomatic, however, on those point of care tests, when you take one, then you can be assured that the margin of error is around, I think it's 2.6%.
So that margin of error, do you mean those would be false negatives, or that if you are?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well
Yeah. So they say that if you're symptomatic and you take a point of care test, that it's 98.2% accurate if you're symptomatic.
Okay.
So yeah, so 98.2, 98.3. Some of the data kind of correlates both of those, but your PCR testing is your gold standard testing, and if you get a negative on a PCR, you can be assured that you are not shedding virus at that point.
Okay, another related question. People are asking about the antibody tests. So those who have gone in and had an antibody test, some who actually did have COVID are coming back with negative antibody tests. Can you give us some idea of the value of an antibody test, I guess?
So Lang has not been involved in antibody testing, and I don't have much data in regards to the antibody testing right now because we're not utilizing it. I do know that from the data that I've read nationwide, that antibodies in a person that has had COVID-19 do wane over time. So just because you've had COVID-19 in the past doesn't mean that you will maintain those antibodies. And especially it does not mean that you won't maintain those antibodies enough to be immune to another exposure and infection in the future.
So maintain vigilant. We remain vigilant.
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes. So we're seeing a lot of evidence that after about 12 weeks, that some people's immunity is waning to the point that they can be reinfected.
All right, I think one last question. The question is the Guard monitoring people who are traveling from out of state through the airport into Louisiana?
So the Guard is not monitoring that. However, the airports are giving people questionnaires and checking temperatures when they're leaving and coming in on flights. And those people who are found to have fevers or to be symptomatic are turned over to contact tracing for the state if they suspect that someone has flown in as a positive COVID-19.
Okay, and I guess just one last more, then we'll let you hit the road to your next adventure. It seems that wherever we go, people are taking temperatures. Certainly if we go to the hospital, a lot of public services and so on take our temperature before we go in. How valuable is that? And is that something we should consider here at LSU as part of the coming to campus or being admitted to campus? Right.
Well, I think that's really an administrative decision, but temperature can be valuable if the person is exhibiting a fever as part of their course of symptoms. However, we have seen people who are totally asymptomatic, no fever, and they're still shedding virus and they're still making others sick. So I certainly would not rely on temperature checks as a measure to make me feel secure in my environment and become relaxed or non-vigilant about mask wearing and infection prevention. I would certainly still, no matter what I did, be hyper-vigilant about wearing a mask, washing my hands, not touching my face, being mindful of wiping down my workspace when I arrive and when I leave at the end of the day.
All right. Well, is fever one of the earliest known symptoms of COVID, or is there any sentinel signs, shall we say?
So fever is a common symptom of COVID. Lots of people, I think the most common symptoms people are reporting are cough, headache, fever, sore throat, that then in some people, unfortunately, progresses to severe respiratory and other type of reactive syndromes in the body that sometimes don't turn out well.
All right. Well, we can't thank you enough for sharing. If there are additional questions, please feel free to forward them to Ms. Knoll via email or chat, and we'll certainly forward those on to Lieutenant Colonel Staal. We thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Staal, for your service to our state and to our nation and to the health and well-being of our LSU. Safe travels.
Thank you. Thank you all. I enjoyed being here today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. All right. Okay. Next up is our from his car, having lost his power in Hurricane Zeta, is Vice Provost and Dean for the Graduate School, Professor James Spencer. He comes to his background is in city and regional planning And he served as the Associate Dean of the College of Architecture, Arts and Humanities at Clemson University. He has very bravely weathered the storm, so to speak, quite literally, actually, and is broadcasting live from the comfort of his perhaps driver's seat. I'm not sure. So thank you, sir, for your vigilance and endurance and coming through despite all obstacles. He's here to fill us in on the future of our LSU graduate school. Thank you, sir.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, great. So thanks, Mandy and the executive committee for giving me the brief time to talk a bit about what I'm up to and introduce myself to the Faculty Senate. And yes, it is my car. And what I will give anybody advice is if you make a professional transition during a time of pandemic, social unrest, electoral crisis, and now hurricanes, it's not so bad doing a Zoom call from your car compared to what else could be out there. So with that said, I will start off the non-COVID-19 components of this meeting, I guess, and tell you a little bit more about my own background, in part because as I kind of get to know you all and know your programs and departments and you individually, you know, I bring with me a certain set of experiences from two institutions that are not too unlike LSU. And so the first one is where I did my undergrad, or my kind of like an undergraduate. It's my assistant professor through associate professor time as a faculty member teaching political science and urban planning at the University of Hawaii, which was you know, a flag land, sea, and space grant university in you know, sort of a unique cultural area. And you know, I always think about as I think about graduate education and my decisions as I later became a department chair and then an associate dean, what would I be thinking as a faculty member? What were some of the things that I was doing when I was kind of in that situation as a faculty member? And so for me, what I always think about in terms of how things in higher education get done, if you don't have the faculty understanding what's going on and really considering how it's implementing throughout the university and affecting the students, then you're going to have a tough time. And so for me, the part of the challenge on the front end of taking on this role at LSU is building strong relationships with the faculty. And part of that is as my own experience as a faculty member at the University of Hawaii. But then the second phase of my career was really, as Mandy suggested, moving to Clemson University as a department chair. And then as a department chair, you are on a daily basis engaged in the running of a program, of the classes, of assigning courses, of collaboratively working on scholarship, evaluating kind of productivity, all these things that are at the heart of what a daily schedule for faculty members are. And so for me, again, that's something that I also think about any kind of programs that I have to make decisions on or try to roll out at this level now is how would a department chair think about this, and how would the department chair's relationship with the faculty members play out in these kinds of decisions. And so that's, to me, again, another experience that I really have valued over 7 years and bring to my kind of new role here. So that brings me here in this role at LSU. And I guess one of the other things I'd like to say, as I kind of interviewed and was considering and thinking about and getting excited about taking on the role, was the great work that the graduate school and the central administration had done prior to the search in having an overview report and evaluation done by the Council on Graduate Schools that really sort of gave a sense to me what the task was. Like where was LSU regarding graduate education? And I think that report was invaluable because it reached deep down into the faculty, into the student body, to the administration, to the various colleges to better understand what were the things that were being done well and what were some of the gaps. And to me, what came out from that report and what I see as sort of the main task is, how do we clean up the identified issues that are already there that are creating some barriers or limitations on LSU sort of gaining greater prominence in its graduate programs across the board, both in terms of quality and quantity. But then even beyond that, what are some of the visions that we want to define as a university? Because I see this role, and I appreciate the fact that the report reflected this, in all my conversations throughout the interview process and since then have reflected this, is that, yeah, we need to clean up a number of things. We need to kind of make things more efficient. We need to get the financial mechanisms and incentivized correctly. But even more than that, we want to define what is excellence. We want to sort of define it in a way that is unique to LSU. We want our graduates and our faculty that are supporting those graduate students to have an identity that is part of the institution, that sort of says this is what LSU is great at, and really sort of embed that within all of our operations. So that's sort of the background with which I'm entering into this position. And I'll say a couple of things about what I see as really important, where I see LSU as being able to really move the needle for itself, but also to be a really great example in higher education more broadly. The first is thinking, how do we integrate sort of the application of knowledge and science, technology, humanities, art, and design into society, right? And this was a big part of the attractiveness for me at LSU, was it's in a state that has some really big issues, right? Everything from climate change to education to health to the state of the economy. All of those are great things that a land, sea, and space grant university has a lot to say about. And it's something that at the graduate level, I'd like to sort of see, how can we support that institutionally? How can we build those and facilitate those external relationships off campus with chambers of commerce, with local governments, with industry, with nonprofits, with environmental movements, all these kinds of sectors outside the university that faculty are already doing them on an individual basis, I'm sure. The question that I see for value adding to that process is to talk about graduate education as systematically at LSU supporting all those endeavors, and collecting all the experiences into a way that we talk about graduate education and the way that we invest in certain components of that. And that has to do with building relationships off campus with our various constituency groups that have a shared interest in our graduate programs as well. The other big thing that I think is already going on at LSU, and was one of the attractive things about the university for me, was its real commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity. And you all, I'm sure, are well aware of the campus Road to Diversity planning process and the commitments that the university has made. And I see this as graduate education really should be moving in this direction too. And I think about this in terms not just of, it's a thing that every university is doing. It's a way that we remain relevant to our future graduate students, because we live in a society that is rapidly becoming much more diverse, and we are part of an institution that, like many other public higher education institutions, has a wonderful track record, but it has also very, very sort of long-standing cultures and traditions and practices that we need to adapt and align with the skill sets and the goals of a new graduate population, because those graduate students will then, many of them will go on to be teaching our undergraduates, who are already kind of reflecting the kinds of changing demographics and diversity that are out there in the world, not just in Louisiana, but even more broadly. So those are a couple of the big picture things that I am going to be sort of trying to get embedded within our practices at the graduate school. But more concretely, and some of you have heard bits and pieces of this, and I spoke at length with Mandy yesterday about how we'd like the Faculty Senate to be involved. There's really two things that I want to get done within the first year of my being in this role. And the first is really to sort of get a strategic plan process moving, to identify sort of key working groups that represent different parts of the university constituency, and to develop a strategy for the graduate school to have guidelines for what it invests in. And that being investing time, some resources that it already has, but then also asking for resources based on what we would like to do, not just from the university itself, but going out also off campus to some of the people and the groups that have shared interest with our graduate growth and quality. So that strategic planning process is already moving forward, and we've set a date for December 10th to really kind of kick off through a half-day Zoom symposium to hear from an outside expert about some general trends in graduate education, things like, I talked about the demographics of the younger population that will be going and enrolling in graduate school over the next 5 or 10 years, as well as some of the changing natures of master's and doctorate level education. It's not that those degrees are only targeting, R1 tenure track faculty positions. There's a whole range of other types of teaching roles out there that are not necessarily focused on, but really big, large areas where some of our graduate students will be wanting to go. There's also increasingly pathways that are targeting towards research careers in industry, leadership positions within nonprofits and local government that are significantly related to PhD level work or that level of training, as well as other kinds of pathways for graduate students. Because again, one of the things that I'd like for us to do as a graduate school is to see what's out there. And there are many of these pathways that students have taken, but we tend not to see them as things that we're cultivating. We tend to see them as they went through the graduate program and then they went off the graduate school program and it was successful in that realm, but it's not something where we say, this is one of our pathways. And so again, this is something where we want to engage with the rest of the university, figure out where are students going, where have they been successful, and then develop pathways and cultivate those pathways and support those pathways and identify them for students and faculty, and set up support structures for the students and faculty that align with those definitions of success. So that's one of the things that I think we'll be hearing some external views on, but then also some internal views about where LSU is going regarding its diversity plan as a campus. And I bring up one example of this, which I think the collaboration across the undergraduate and graduate level is really essential. As we bring in a more diverse undergraduate population and student enrollment, what does that mean for our teaching assistants, right? We're adding a skill set to that teaching assistantship that then will have value when they go out and look for positions, right? So one of the things that I think may come out of this strategic plan is something where we can sort of have a clinical experience for all teaching assistants across campus about managing a more diverse classroom and having some skill sets that they bring out with them, and then identifying them as somebody who has that skill coming from LSU, and that makes them a more competitive candidate in the market than their counterpart from the University of Tennessee or from some other university where we might be competing for positions with. So it's those kinds of collaborative links across campus on some of the things that we're doing well in other parts of the university that I think this kind of planning process can really facilitate. So my request to Mandy yesterday, and I would encourage you, if you have a particular interest in serving in one of these roles, that you work with her or let her know. We will be having 4 or 5 constituency groups as part of that planning process. And one of them is the faculty constituency group that will have a core group of the graduate coordinators who are coming from the faculty, or I forget if it's graduate coordinators or graduate advisors. But we'd like to actually have 5 or 7 of them that are nominated by the faculty senate, so that we have a link to the faculty senate and the broader population of faculty across the campus. And so I'm going to be asking Mandy to kind of make some suggestions to us. And if you have some interest in this kind of a process and want to be engaged in it, then I would encourage you to let her know. Similarly, we will be having one brief discussion panel in which we'll be talking about the ways that students learn and the effect that technology has on the skill sets that students are coming to graduate school with. And we'd like to have a discussion between a student, the leader of the LSU online program, to talk not just about the programs about online, but talk about how online has kind of been integrated into very traditional modes and modalities of teaching and education at the graduate level. But then we'd also like to have a faculty member who would really like to engage substantively on the pros and cons of technology and integration into graduate programs, and have that be sort of a starting point for thinking about what can we do in this space. Okay, all that is, again, something, if you feel like you'd like to sort of be considered for that, please let Mandy know, and we can do that. There's a number of other things that I think we can be working on together over the first year, but I see Mandy standing up, and I know that you all are on a tight timeline, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and you can email me whenever you like.
Well, we thank you very much for that presentation, and we did have a very long and engaging conversation yesterday. I got to meet his daughter Saba, who was doing a dance with the rhythm crackers in the background. It was lovely. All the things we learned about each other, right?
Yes, that's right.
But we appreciate your reaching out to faculty. There are a number of faculty in the Senate and across the campus that are extremely engaged in graduate education and wanting more opportunities for our graduates. So I have already mentioned a few names, but if you are interested, and I'm sure there are many of you are, and as representative of as representatives of your faculty, I hope you will reach out and volunteer, or volunteer your friends, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And we'll certainly look forward to that and working with Vice Provost and Dean Spencer. Welcome, Dean Spencer, and thank you for going above and beyond. At least you're not in a tree house. I guess.
No.
Another option. So, and I hope you and your family are safe, and will be joining us in person soon. I think there is a question. I don't know if you can see your chat. So the question is, how can the graduate school facilitate recruitment of international students for programs that are mainly American student oriented, and to recruit American students for programs that are mainly international graduate students?
Yeah, so thanks for this question. I'm very interested in the globalization of education, and I know that there are, especially right now, there's some unique challenges. But I will say that I've always felt from my days as an assistant professor that international student recruitment is good for everybody on campus, not just for those students that are coming to campus. And I say that because, like diversity more broadly, we learn a lot. And I think that we can integrate international expertise into our classrooms and create structure ways for our students to learn from one another. One of the things that I found when I was a professor at the University of Hawaii, which had a very strong relationship with many of the developing countries of Asia, what I found is that word of mouth is gold. We can program things, we can develop marketing and brochures and all these kinds of things, but the word of mouth that oftentimes are kind of specific to particular countries is really where you get committed students. Now, I think that many of our programs are actually relevant for international students. One example, and I think about this in terms of many countries where global climate change and land loss and coastal management is a huge issue. everything from environmental engineering to climatology to land use planning. These are all fields where everybody from Bangladesh and Nigeria and many of these countries with very many students that are oftentimes government funded have very core interest to what LSU is good at and what it already has a name brand for. Now that's not the only identity that it has, but what I'm saying is that we have a new international students director coming on board, I believe, very soon. One of the things I'd like to do is to build a relationship with that new person to sort of think about how do we target at the graduate level for these kinds of relationships to build a reputation. And part of that depends on the reputation that's already out there at the department level.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Well, again, if you have some questions, we'll be happy to forward those. Please share them in the chat or go ahead and email us, Ms. Knoll. Thank you again very much, Vice Provost Spencer. Say hello to Saba for me. Have a good evening and be safe. All right. All right, we had to sort of tip the schedule a bit, tip the agenda just a little bit to fit in our important guests who overcame some pretty significant obstacles to meet with us, and for that we're grateful. I think I'm clear now. I'm ready to give my president's report, and then we'll move on to old business. All right, so first and foremost, I'd like to begin by thanking you, our faculty senators, for responding to the multiple queries with thought and insight. I know that we've reached out an extraordinary number of times to ask for your feedback on a never-ending list of issues. You replied quickly and candidly and conveyed the voices of your faculty very effectively. For that, we are sincerely thankful. I also appreciate the initiative of the administration to reach out to faculty without hesitation on a regular and somewhat routine basis. This healthy partnership is integral to our growth as a university and to overcoming some rather arduous hurdles that we could not have possibly imagined less than a year ago. Well done. Next, well, perhaps never before has the phrase boil and bubble, toil and trouble had such practical meaning, at least not in the easily accessible hard drive of our current memory. A few things from the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. The bylaws. For the most part, the unquestionably committed efforts of past President McMillan have yielded bylaws and committee operating procedures that will surely guide us through these times and far into the future. One point that consistently bubbles to the top is the question of officer term limits. This seems to be split about down the middle based on subjective observation. However, it will be important to include this point in our bylaws discussions up next. Good news on the American Association of University Professor Censure of LSU. President Gallagher and the Board of Supervisors Chair, DAMP, met with AAUP faculty representatives to initiate the process of removing our LSU from AAUP censure. It appears that the biggest point was lack of protection for untenured but long-serving faculty. It's possible that some of this has been addressed after recent changes or by recent changes and PS 36NT. While there may be additional concerns, the AAUP will no doubt clearly enumerate them once the conversation begins again. It just appears that the information was not officially conveyed to them. So we have high hopes for a satisfactory resolution. We'll keep on that and provide updates as they come available. Additionally, promising news on the Uber Tech Committee, that is the committee of individuals charged with envisioning goals and associated requirements for LSU to achieve a technology level consistent with contemporary or relatively contemporary, or at least post-1980s standards. The administration has reached out to reimagine the role of the committee in percolating our LSU toward futuristic, forward-thinking, and achievable outcomes. So thank you for that, and faculty are fully engaged and ready to assist. We're happy to report that they will be meeting more regularly than once per year. And speaking of achievable outcomes, faculty continue to take issues with the Grok articles. I may be among any number of faculty that regress to a simpering pile of woe when I land on a Grok page. I have yet to sort out exactly what Grok stands for, though I have some creative suggestions. Does it sound to you like a word from a prehistoric language? Grok. Seriously? So the Grok grievances continue to grow with faculty growls and groans. The FSC is ready, willing, and able to participate in discussions about how to overcome the Grok syndrome. Next, our students. The faculty appreciate that the Provost office fully acknowledges that faculty decide and develop educational policy at LSU. Unfortunately, it appears that educational policy messages from student government or other student sources are passed through the Provost office to the faculty via the Faculty Senate and then back again. The faculty suggests that the Faculty Senate Executive Committee or Faculty Senate President or representative be included in conversations, in initial conversations when possible surrounding educational policy. This will make the communication a little more direct, less arduous, and avoid reminiscing about campfire telephone games of our not so distant youth. Next up, policy statement 22, student absence from class. As many know, there was a request from the student body to include in-person voting as an excusable class absence. An additional request was to include volunteer participation at polling sites as well. There was an unquestionable majority response from all colleges to include voting as an excusable absence. However, faculty did not agree that volunteer service can be an excused absence. We are certainly happy to support the efforts of our civically responsible student body. We remind them, however, that we are here to support their educational enterprise and that proper planning prevents or otherwise diminishes the likelihood of poor performance. An additional student request for pass no credit grading and extension of the drop deadline until the end of the semester was also considered by faculty. After abundant, dynamic, thoughtful, and candid repartee between wizened professors, the faculty decided that current grading standards would remain in place. However, faculty did feel that the drop date should be extended to the last day of class, but not a minute later, due to severe weather events that caused numerous interruptions in instruction over the semester, an unprecedented number to be sure. And next, a request to have a graduation ceremony. I can share that the inability to safely conduct graduation ceremony has been a point of great concern for the administration that they have shared with the faculty. Of course, the graduation ceremony is both the most revered and celebrated rite of passage demonstration for our amazing graduates. It is also well recognized that the COVID pandemic has disrupted our livelihoods, education, and communities, and distanced our friends, colleagues, and families. Nonetheless, our LSU rallied, pulled, tugged, lifted, and marched on to deliver on a promise of educating no matter what the circumstances. This has been no easy task, nor has it been without personal cost in terms of actual currency, time, and physical endurance. Despite small and no raises, faculty and staff purchased bandwidth, routers, computers, cameras, etc. to convert to a digital format. And hours in front of the screen consumed the biggest portion of most of, if not all, days of the week. The workload is immense as course loads increase and faculty and staff strive to meet the individual needs of every single student. In the midst of this, many grieve the loss of family, friends, and colleagues. So while faculty understand the importance, value, and sanctity of a graduation student, remember that fierce LSU faculty put the health, safety, and ultimate success of our LSU community above our personal needs or desire for celebration. Let's remain united in our quest to conquer COVID and protect our friends and loved ones. Moving on, the Board of Supervisors. First up, on Thursday afternoon, last Thursday afternoon, a week ago, the Board of Supervisors held a diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion led by our own Dean of Sciences and Education, Professor Roland Mitchell. It was an informative, enlightening, and very important opportunity to share, learn, and grow. Of course, the LSU presenters were outstanding. We truly value their candor, courage, and message. Thanks to all. Next, the Council of Faculty Advisors presented a few points to the board on behalf of our LSU faculty. The faculty are grateful and appreciative of the transparency in the LSU president's search. President's chancellor. It has been a refreshing change from times gone by, and the faculty are immensely grateful. The search committee is composed of highly respected and accomplished individuals. Faculty wonder, however, why elected faculty leadership is not represented on the committee. The member could come from any campus faculty senate, or the Faculty Advisory Council, which also represents all of the senates of all of our campuses. The faculty hope that a member from among these elected bodies will be considered and included in the search committee. Next, it comes on relatively third-hand, but good authority that a faculty member will be invited to serve as a non-voting, presumably member of the Board of Supervisors. There is a student member on the board, Student Body President Stone Cox, but no faculty. We certainly look forward to faculty representation and believe the board will find faculty input vital to their mission of overseeing our university activities. This is something that has been requested by the council for some years now. Information, I guess this is primarily informational. The faculty recently became aware that there's a glaring omission in Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance coverage offered by our LSU. There are two local plans, Magnolia Local and Magnolia Local Plus. The Local Plus plan is $100 per month for this same family coverage as local, but with a nationwide network. The problem is that Magnolia Local Plus does not include Iberville residents in the plan. That is, if you reside in Iberville Parish. Full disclosure, I live in Iberville Parish, and many of my friends and colleagues at LSU do too. You do not qualify, or you are not eligible for the less expensive coverage. This seems a bit strange since other more remote parishes like Bossier, Evangeline, St. Tammany, and so on are included in the plan. We're waiting on a response from Blue Cross Blue Shield. All right, so please listen intently. I'm going to read to you the next bit that was provided to the Board of Supervisors as closely to verbatim as possible. With a long history of minimal or no raises at our LSU, the issue of salary inequities remains unanswered. The University Council on Gender Equity generated a report in 2015 that clearly identified some salary disparities between genders, with those who identify as female receiving substantially less than those identifying as male in quite a few colleges. Notably, only base salaries were provided to the committee for analysis. Extra compensation for various administrative or scholarly appointments was not included, and this very likely affected the results. The LSU Faculty Senate requested transparency and regular reporting on salary distribution among genders at that time and has made this request regularly since. However, it is yet to materialize. The faculty requests full transparency in salary distribution among genders on a regular basis. All right. Those of you who tuned into the live stream of the Board of Supervisors meeting last Friday may have heard me deliver this report in place of my colleague, Professor Robinson, who had to step out of the meeting just before the report was called for. So I stepped in and delivered the report. One of the board members appeared to take issue with the verbiage about those who identify as male versus those who identify as female. I don't need to provide details of the exchange. You can view it yourself. The meeting was recorded and it will be now freely, it will be, if it's not already, freely accessible on YouTube, I think, in the near future. All right. So apparently there was a somewhat large audience viewing the meeting because my phone and email subsequently blew up or otherwise expanded at an uncharacteristic rate with messages of support and kind condolences. While I appreciate this immensely, it does my heart good, I wish to kindly redirect your energies to the bigger picture. Please, friends, don't focus on the bewildering exchange between two individuals. That's immaterial. Instead, focus on what social disconnect or lack of understanding drove the line of questioning that happened to be directed at me, the messenger. I don't know what the incentive was to question the message that data from some years back supports that those who identify as female are paid less than those that identify as male, and specifically with the broad descriptive terms for our LSU faculty used to identify as serious pro one. Again, friends, my thanks, but I was just a messenger. It's not about me. I appeal to you to continue to embody positive social change. Be the change. All right, I think that's plenty for this president's report. We're halfway to winter break, friends. Thank you for your service. Stay strong, be well, be kind to your friends and pleasant to your frenemies, and above all, be fierce for the faculty. Thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions. Right. And thank you for the question about why was only these broad categories included. So just very briefly, a bit of history. This was an initiative started by the University Council on Gender Equity in approximately circa 2015, and took a lot of wrangling and a bit of arm twisting and persistence, and well, it was quite a task to get de-identified salary data from HRM at the time. And as hard as we tried, we simply, well, perhaps we didn't have the fortitude or the ability, I'm not really sure which, but we could not, after several years, extract any more definitive or defined characteristics. Nonetheless, it was a starting point, a launching point. The Faculty Senate has made this an important initiative and has reached out to administration on several occasions. I think past President McMillan led that particular drive, and we even offered to fund partial support of the graduate student to collect and further divide, I guess, define different subgroups within the data. We've not been able to do that yet. So excellent question, and yes, very important, and yes, we're on it. No question. This was a first step of a very large and complex initiative. Are there any other questions? All right. Next up, we have presented the bylaws revisions, and it was moved forward to a discussion. We'll reopen the issue for further discussion and move forward for a vote, hopefully at this meeting. I know several people have joined us, and there are some comments and suggestions. So I'll start by asking past President Professor McMillan if he wants to summarize the most recent updates based on faculty feedback and give us I think we've sent the final draft. Yes, everyone's received the final draft, and then we'll ask for a motion to vote and move forward.
Thank you, President Lopez. I'll summarize the major changes that have been made, or at least are proposed, since our last meeting on September 22nd, and address some of the questions. I won't identify the individuals who made the comments and had questions about some of the wording or verbiage, just for lack of consideration for their privacy. The first major change was the question about what Board of Supervisor bylaws and regulations dictate who can and can't serve on a particular faculty senate committee. And rather than elucidate all of those or necessarily point out each of the different bylaws or operating procedures from the Board of Supervisors, the Executive Committee chose to change Article 3, Membership Section 3, to clarify that membership eligibility on committees may be dictated by the Board of Supervisors bylaws and regulations or the Faculty Senate Committee operating procedures. And so those of you who are looking at copies of the draft Constitution and bylaws, whether the track changes copy, which is pretty messy, or the clean copy, that's shown in yellow there in Article 3 on the membership section. The next question, which several individuals had, was about Faculty Senate Executive Committee members and whether they can actually be elected if they're not senators. And so we've chosen in Article 4 of the Constitution, officers, Section 1 clarifies that the Faculty Senate shall elect a president, a vice president, and a secretary from the faculty members eligible to be elected to the Faculty Senate Executive Committee as described in the bylaws. The bylaws then already had clarified in Article 6, Election of Officers, Section 2, that all current senators, the president, and members of the Executive Committee would be eligible to be nominated for Faculty Senate executive positions. And so the faculty members who questioned that seem satisfied that that would address that particular difficulty or point of contention. There's a question about the quorum. And so Article 5 of the bylaws, Section 4, clarifies that Faculty Senate Executive Committee members do count towards a quorum so that business can be conducted, but they may not vote unless they are currently an elected senator or they're serving as an alternate for the senator from their unit at that particular meeting. And so we think that these changes have addressed all of the concerns expressed to date, but obviously the floor is now open for discussion, further questions. And I may ask the Executive Committee members to jump in at any point in time to help me address, because remember, these are faculty senate bylaws, constitution and bylaws. They're not mine. They're not the executive committees, and the changes that we've recommended are strictly to help streamline and actually help us to conduct business in the fashion in which we need to do that. Dr. Lopez has indicated that there are questions about the term limits, whether we should have those or not. Quite honestly, the recommendation that presidents serve for a 2-year term and all other officers and executive committee members, those at large, serve a 1-year term, and that there be a maximum of 3 consecutive terms. That was quite honestly a compromise between individuals who think that we should not have any term limits versus those who think that we should have even stricter term limits. So I'll fully admit that that is a compromise, and remind you that the Constitution can be changed at any point in time by bringing up any senator, bringing up that they want to have a Constitution change, it being accepted at one meeting and then being voted on at the subsequent second meeting, the same with the bylaws. And so in that regard, these seem to be substantive major changes, but if in retrospect, it looks like any of them are not going to fulfill the requirements of the Senate, then they can be fairly easily changed in a 2-month time period based upon the majority of senators who think they need to be changed.
All right, thank you very much, Professor McMillan. Hats off to you for all of your efforts on bringing our bylaws up to date, and as stated in the bylaws themselves, as we've been a little bit remiss in updating them in the most recent years. So are there comments, discussion, suggestions? All right. Well, hearing and seeing none, we can ask for a motion to approve, to move the bylaws to, well, hang on. All right, is there a motion to approve the bylaws?
Constitution and bylaws.
Constitution and bylaws. Apologies. And
Operating procedures.
I think we're doing that in one fell swoop, yes? All right, fair enough. All right, all those in favor, we've had a number of seconds and firsts and probably thirds or fourths. Thank you all very much. Please push your yes button, and if you can't find it, you have to go to participants at the bottom of the screen, and then, yep, there you go. Just tick the green, I think it's green, right? The check button, that means yes, I think. And it's very good. Be sure you all vote, because we do have to have a quorum. All right, still going up. Yep, we're still missing a few. There's more on the call than have checked. Are we at quorum yet?
Not quite. We need some more.
All right, need a few more, friends.
Should they write abstain if they want to abstain?
Well, yes, you can abstain as well. Please send us a message if you wish to abstain. Dr. Stedler, it's under participants. You have to tick on the participants, and then it's you have to scroll down, and it's at the bottom of the participant screen. Okay, we have a form with the. All right, Very good, friends. They have passed. Well done, Professor McMillan and FSEC for a job that took a year, but we made it. All right, so next up, I will be reaching out to most of you for some of our open standing committee positions. So please stay tuned. I'm sure you'll be excited to join your friends in furthering the faculty presence in many of the decisions and corresponding, well, what do I want to say? And communicating with our administration. So please be prepared to join some standing committees. I appreciate all the work you do and enjoy the enthusiasm and the candor and above all the wisdom of our faculty voice. All of our faculty voices. All right. I think that concludes our business for today. Unless there is something further, someone would like to raise any issues or something additional to be discussed? Yes, Past President McMillan.
Yes, I think we need to recognize their continuing efforts from our coordinator of the Faculty Senate. She jumps in and does things almost before we need that they need to be done. And she's really been a yeoman both on the PowerPoints for the changes that were presented at the last meeting, as well as helping me with all the changes. And so I think we just need to recognize her. It's extremely difficult when you can't meet face to face, and she does an outstanding job of making sure that we're all on track. So thank you, Susanna.
Hear, hear. Well said, Past President McMillan. So yes, she is absolutely the best. And I know many of you communicate with her. She does an extraordinary job. We're very grateful for her. All right, everyone's anxious to get on with their evening. If there is no opposition, we'll adjourn until next month. See you then, if not before.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.